I was actually formulating a game between Boxwalas and Babus. Concepts, context, and case. Once they get more demand, then we get more labor, more employment. Endogeneity is something determines within the system. Exogeneity is something determines outside the system. It's a very beautiful project. I can explain you what we did. Why a multinational company want to enter into a developing country. The game has to meet at one point called Memorandum of Understanding. So I was trying to test that what is a backward linkages and forward linkages. It was a dream for all Andhra people. How can we generate revenue from the cost center to a revenue generator? I take care of products, projects, and people. One thing I'll tell you, change is constant. This is where I call this entire thing as a digital economics.
Namaste. This is Srilata Shankar. In our leadership series talk, we have with us today Dr.Venu Gopal Jarugumalli. Dr. Venu Gopal, namaste, and we are glad to have you with us today.
Thank you.
We can start with your career. I understand you did your graduation and went on to become an economist and then chose information technology. Can you please run us through your career?
Sure. First of all, thank you and namaste for welcoming to this kind of a series.
Our pleasure to have you.
Okay, so let me start with my education background. Okay, I have a very what you call it as I started my journey from a place where is no bus services till now, and today where I am here is quite an achievement, and it's all because of the education what I have. So I would like to mention about my education. I'm from APRJC Nagarjuna Sagar, where I did my +2 and then moved to SV University Tirupati for my graduation. That's in a different subject called Accounts, Economics, Statistics, and Mathematics was my core subject.
That's really interesting. Economics, mathematics, and today information technology.
Yes. So, and after that, I did my University of Hyderabad in econometrics and game theory. So that's my master's. Then I wrote an entrance for Institute for Social and Economic Change, which is a Bangalore based, which is basically an ICSR institute. And then I did my PhD from there. After that, I moved to ISB for my further education and worked as a consultant. But at ISB, I started I should also get into a corporate, where I had to start my journey. So throughout my entire career, one thing common was statistics and economics. Mm-hmm. So I chose statistics because that was a budding field. Okay. So when I initially started my jobs, the job roles were statistician and chief statistician, and then consultant kind of a thing. Then with my economics, I became a business analyst and business consultant. I started as a consultant of retail analytics economics, and afterwards I moved to different companies. I started with IRI, which is basically in information resourcing, which is on the what you call it as retail front, where we used to model the price promotion kind of an.
So is IRI a corporate company or is
it's a corporate company. It's also called a Symphony Group, which is the first venture capital group of working on that. IRI is information resourcing.
Okay.
That is the company where you get all the retail analytics started there.
Okay.
Then I moved to Satyam Computers.
Which is probably a stipulated period of time. Many people finish their thesis, but in your case, you had to collect data across the country, and India is a large country by itself.
Yeah.
How did you go about that?
Yes. I had a fellowship, so I used that fellowship, and also I used to be a paper boy. So my guide used to call me as a paper boy because I presented a lot of research papers across the country. So wherever there is a data, I used to go there. In fact, I went to
research in economics or econometrics?
Research in economics, but mostly the tools and techniques are from econometrics.
Sure.
And game theory is my basic foundation.
So is the game theory that you developed, if I'm right, you developed the game theory, is it applicable in India across states?
Definitely. I'll tell you, I don't want to quote a major automobile industry because which was in a Bangalore.
Sure.
So for that automobile industry, I can tell you about what government has given in incentives. So government has given in 432 acres of land
Wonderful.
with 18 years of sales tax duty.
Using that game theory.
Yes.
Okay.
18 years of sales tax exemption and 14 years of electricity duty free has given to a company to come. But in turn, it has created only 2,000 employment. So now there is a cost benefit analysis which you have to refer.
Right.
So how much of cost the country is foregoing and how much of the benefits internet is getting.
All right.
So that is the logic. So for that, so every country will attract. What happens when a country goes for any multinations? It's basically a game between states.
Correct.
So every state will come and announce that
Want to take,
you come to my state, I'll give you this much of incentives and all.
Right.
So what happens? It is again a positive and negative attitude. So if you ask me in long term, everything leads to a good and development. But in short term, if the state's economic conditions are poor and pathetic, then you see a lot of issues and all.
Plus political issues as
That's
well.
what I mean to say. That's why I mentioned it as game between babus and boxwalas.
Right. But in cases like Nano, for example, they wanted to set up a plant in Bengal, but for various political reasons, they did not allow Ratan Tata to do it. And then they chose Gujarat. So what exactly happens over there?
So I think that gets into a political discussion, but I can correct it. So what happens if you look at almost all the automobile companies which has entered into in India, everything has come out within two kind of modes. The first is basically when they are entering, they choose a joint venture mode.
Okay.
So that was our policies then.
Right.
So there is no 100% whole subsidiary which entered. So when they are coming like that, most of the domestic companies has basically had a partnership or joint venture with these companies, and then they started this.
Okay.
So whereas Tata is a whole subsidiary of India, which has its own thing set up in India, they were trying to set it up. So then what happens? It's a political issue.
Right.
Okay. So they basically, whatever I just said, incentivize and other things. There was a problem, and then they went.
He moved to Gujarat.
Yeah.
All right.
So again, there is another theory called convergence and divergence between different states. So these are the public economics, which is my interest actually.
Sure. You then went on to do your course in ISB. What was the course?
No, I was actually selected as a consultant for ISB because ISB, all the faculties used to come from outside.
Right.
And then they were looking for a bright PhD guys who can actually help the students to get into their education. So kind of an teaching assistant and research assistant kind of a ship.
Okay.
So I went to do that, and then my aim is to complete postdoctorate from there.
Okay.
So, but some of the professors who come from abroad, they said like, they talked to me and said like, you have been studying only in India. Why don't you have a foreign degree? Because that's a passion. So all your degrees are from India. I was PhD when I was 27. Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
So then they said like, you have to go to some other place and do your PhD. So that triggered me. Okay. Then I wrote. I started writing some proposals to
various countries,
external universities and all. Then again, middle class family melody started. So I have to get into my family thing, and then I have to go to a corporate job to feed my family. So that's how I went into a corporate.
So let's talk about your corporate journey now.
Sure.
Which company, after your PhD, which company did you join?
I joined a company called IRI. So in IRI, I started to work as a retail analytical consultant.
Okay.
So what we used to do is we used to have some models which is pre-built. Then I just need to change some of the parameters and then look at the blue screens and green screens running.
And after IRI, which company did you work on?
Then that is the time I was actually not happy with the kind of work I'm doing.
Right.
Because there was an egoistic behavior, right? I'm a PhD, I run so many models. So
Why am I doing this job?
why am I looking at the screen and wasting my time?
Right.
So I was not happy there. And then there was I went and attended a conference in Bangalore. There was a gentleman sitting next to me. He was looking at me. I was very enthusiastic in writing all the things. He asked me one question like, "Where are you from?" I said, "Where are you working?" I said, "I'm from so and so company." Then immediately he said like, "Are you still with the company or you resigned?" I said, "Yes, sir, I resigned it." Then he also said, "I was working there earlier," and then I put down my papers. Then he offered me his visiting card. Then I went there. It was Satyam Computers.
Okay.
It was a dream for all Andhra people. Okay.
Back then.
Back then. So I went and joined there. So I worked with Satyam Computers as an SME, subject matter expert. So whatever I learned in the pre-built model, I used to re-engineer stuff.
Okay.
So I used to understand what was this built models and all. That re-engineering helped me to come and build a lot of stuff in Satyam Computers. So I'm actually a first employee in KPO. They have this wing called, then it was Satyam KPO Services.
It was Nipuna, right?
Nipuna, then Satyam KPO. I joined when it was Satyam KPO. Nipuna was a BPO, then KPO.
Okay.
Then I was first employee to join there, and then we started building around 100 plus employees there.
Sure.
So what I used to do is I had a different projects. The first project was within chocolate company. So we started building their price promotions and market mix models.
Okay.
Then I went to, they sent me to New York to work with an pharma chain. So where we were trying to build a market mix modeling and trying to understand. It's a very beautiful project. I can explain you what we did because Satyam is no more, but I have to tell the kind of work what we have done.
Sure.
So the first and foremost thing was that was actually a global pharmaceutical company. So in that company, they have 15 to 16 brands, and each and every brand used to get a market mix. So they used to advertise. So what we did was we tried to find out that market data, and then we used to analyze that and try to find out what is an ROI of each and every marketing campaign. Actually, we get in different agents who collects the data.
Okay.
So we get in data from an marketing campaigns like ad campaigns and ad agencies, and we also get in data from speaker data program. Like if any speaker comes and then gives a seminar about it,
Right.
how many people has attended. So these are all basically which is an inputs.
Right.
But output is how many RXs you wrote.
What is RX?
RX is basically number of prescriptions.
Okay.
So how many prescriptions you wrote. So we used to correlate number of prescriptions versus number of efforts they have done. Like you have an print, you have an advertising from an internet. We used to have a radio advertising.
Sure.
And we used to have this speaker data, and we also have a sales interaction. A sales guy comes and spends the time with the doctor. We call it as a detailing term.
Okay. As a layman, a prescription, he would understand it only from a doctor's point of view.
Yeah.
What do you mean by prescription?
So prescription is, for example, in the country like US, you don't get an OTC medicine, over the counter.
Over the counter. Okay.
So you have to get a prescription from the person, and then you have to collect it. It was so organized way back in 2006, 2007 time.
Yeah.
So that prescription has to be produced, and then they have to collect it.
Okay.
So each and every prescription has a doctor's registration number.
Okay.
So they track that doctor's registration and prescription. Then they will buy from these stores. So all the data will be digitally recorded.
All right.
So we used to have that prescription data details.
Okay. Moving on from your Satyam Computer journey, which was the next company that you worked with?
I used to work for clients like KPMG and this thing. It's called EVS,
Okay.
Evaluate Serve in Gurgaon.
Okay.
So I moved all the way from Hyderabad to Gurgaon. That is where I was working, and then I worked for an British Telecom, and then I worked for a lot of other clients. So British Telecom was mainly an kind of an telecommunication company. There was a lot of churn happening that time. So they're shifting from landline to the mobile phones, wheel phones kind of stuff. So we were trying to build and churn models and predicting what was the behavior of the people, why they're churning kind of thing. Then I also worked for a lot of banks, again trying to understand customer segmentation, why the
When you said you work for banks, you were working as a client with them.
banks were our clients.
Clients, right.
So we were actually service providers, but this was a knowledge work.
Sure.
So I can tell you at one point here, all my works, what helped me is my statistics and my economic analysis. So these are the two things which kept me. So for me, any field, I quickly catch up, any domain, but the analysis procedure is same. So that's how we are trying to work out.
All right.
So I worked there. After that, I had some issues with my family. So my father and mother was not well. So I had to come back to South. So I moved to a company called HP. So HP was starting something called Global Analytics. So I joined in HP. I was leading in quality and warranty analytics division there. So I can again say like HP, I did a lot of analysis work, which is basically on like we were designing in warranty and then we went up to predicting the warranty frauds. So HP used to be an HP at those days. We had 3 different product lines. We have our PCs, we have printers, we have the servers.
Okay.
So we used to predict the warranty for each of these. So and then HP services were there, which are now a DXC kind of stuff. So when we built this entire scenario, we were trying to understand how to build a warranty. That is where the competitive intelligence has come. So if what are the competitors offering versus what we are offering. So we used to do all the spider chart analysis and all. So from HP onwards, I started to build as a team and team management, everything has come. And then once you have built a warranty product, how does that warranty is taken? Like, for example, people buy the product, but they don't buy the warranty. So warranty is basically cost to the company. So what we started is we came up with some logics and then started to find out something like upselling and cross-selling models. So where we used to identify the enterprise customers and sell it. And it has
market
B2B
segment as well.
Yeah, it's a B2B kind of stuff. And B2C scenario is very difficult. In a B2C scenario, we will understand the customers, but we don't have their proper numbers and all. So what we used to do is when the customer used to call us, so that time we used to identify that customer details and collect that information, and then we used to backtrack him and try to sell our products. So that's how we generated a lot of revenue from that upselling and cross-selling.
Okay. And currently you're working for a company. Can you please talk about that?
Yes. Before this, I just want to give a couple of other examples. So after my HP, then I moved to a company called Cisco, which is again a global giant. So Cisco, again, I started as a strategy head for a product called WebEx. So where we were trying to understand a lot of cost push to sales push kind of thing. So we changed the center from a cost to which is basically a cost center to a profit center or revenue center. So what happens is Cisco used to give this product. So whenever they used to call the customer services and all, customer service is always a cost to the company. How can we generate revenue from the cost center to a revenue generator? So that's where what we have done is, I think it's way back now, we are talking about all Gen AI and all the stuff. So when those days, when the data itself is not a big data kind of a stuff, what we used to do there is, we used to basically understand this cost details and try to analyze that cost details, like the customer call details and all. From there, we used to identify the same analogy what I used in HP, which is upselling and cross-selling. So also we used to understand the customer churn behavior and try to do that. I can tell you one strategy which we implemented. If we have an enterprise customer, legacy customers we call them, those customers will have a details of they might have registered our product and not using it, but they will be paying it. So what we used to do is we have bought a concept called consumption economics. So we used to identify the customers who are not using our product.
Okay.
And then we used to reach out to the customers and say, hey, you registered with us with 100 licenses, but your actual capacity is only 30 to 40. So why don't you do one thing? I will downgrade your licenses fees to 50. Okay. If you want anything, we'll give you more. So this is the kind of a strategy.
So they save on the cost.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is a cost to the customer from our side, and also we get a recurring revenue.
Right.
So we talk about revenue economics there, consumption economics there, and loyalty economics.
Okay.
So that's how my economists are still alive.
Okay.
Then I moved to the current company, ZF. ZF, I'm actually working on manufacturing analytics. So I'm also heading the AI product side. We build a lot of AI products. When I say AI products, it's basically a product is different from a project. Project is customer have a requirement and then he gives us. Product is something like we create our own ideas and then we basically
sell
to them. So I take care of products, projects, and people.
All right. So the career that you've spanned for the last few decades, what do you tell a student how he can shape his career?
Yeah. So one thing I'll tell you, change is constant. Okay. Change is a constant. Every day you need to change it. And to keep that change, you have to update your knowledge. You have to learn so many things. Okay. And learning by doing is another thing. You always need to constantly update your knowledge. I'll tell you, when I started my career of what you call it as statistics or analytics, or now you call it as AI or Gen AI, whatever it may be, we used to use a floppy disks. Okay. And if one floppy disk gets a virus, so there are a lot of days where I cried.
Right.
Because I wrote a program and then that program went for an
you had to just throw it in the dustbin.
I don't have a backup. Then the floppy disk has come to CDs. Then it has come to hard disks. Now you have everything in cloud. You have multiple backups.
Right.
So if you ask me, I'm not a techie, but as an economist, I lead a lot of engineers who are world-class engineers. Okay, that's a good learning for me. But what happens here is the technology is changing over a period of time. You yourself need to keep update with that. So if
you need to adapt yourself.
Yeah, if you are not for that adaptation, you are out.
You become obsolete.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between market research and economic research, statistic research, etc.?
So if you ask me, market research is kind of an research where we try to understand the dynamics of market and try to understand what all the intelligence you are having it. So if you ask me, a market research consists of MI and CI.
MI and?
CI, market intelligence and competitive intelligence. Okay. So, and also you do a lot of research intelligence. Basically you conduct surveys and then do that. So these are the three things which comes there. Market intelligence, where you try to understand what is your product movement, what were your competitors are doing, how much of you can price, how much you can, what are the cannibalization effects of your product, and what are the, I always mentioned about the endogeneity and exogeneity, right? What are the external forces which is hitting your product? So that kind of a thing. And in the competitive intelligence, you need to understand your competitors' moves. It's again a game theory strategy.
Right.
Okay. So how do your competitors are moving? How much they are pricing? What is your competitors' new offerings? How much discounts they are doing it? And then there is a research intelligence where you try to understand the primary research, or now you call it as the digital research, whatever it may be. So you try to reach out to your customers in a sample size and try to understand how each and every customer is trying to understand your dynamics of product and all. So economic research and other ways, like it's again a macroeconomic and microeconomic research. Macroeconomic research is how your macroeconomic parameters are changing. Like you have an inflation, you have an GDP, and you have something like external shocks coming.
Right.
Your FII is flowing, FDI is flowing, all these things are flowing it. So you have to watch that. So if you don't understand any of this intelligence correctly, you are out from the system.
Right. So how does a student who's wanting to take economics or
Yeah.
econometrics,
Yeah.
but doesn't have a clue at all as to how let's say a 11th or 12th class student
Yes.
who, seeing your video, wants to take up economics or econometrics, but doesn't have a clue as to how he needs to shape his career. What are the tips that you would give him?
See, I'll tell you, there is always a pure science versus applied sciences. The pure science is something like physics, economics, and all those things are pure science. I always take economics as a science because it also gets a Nobel Prize.
Right.
Okay. See, the applied sciences are something like the management kind of a thing. So what happens? It becomes like master of everything, and then
Jack of none.
Jack
Jack of all trades, master of none.
master of nothing. But management is also science. It has different branches and all. If you study an applied science, it will definitely take you to a different destiny. But your pure sciences up to certain graduation level will definitely master your skills at an applied level.
Right.
So if you ask me what economics they have to study is, economics is also changing its scope.
Sure.
So when we used to study, I'll tell my experience in my University of Hyderabad days. When all my classmates, I have a very good bunch
Team.
of classmates who has come from all over the globe.
Right.
Okay. So my professor was asking what book you studied, and all. Very innocently I raised my hand and said like technical series test paper. Everyone laughed at me. The same guy at the end of my fourth semester, I was the topper.
Sure.
So now I can tell some 100 to 500 books. What is that? So it's all because of you have to put effort, and you have to understand the concepts, and you have to always understand the context, and you have to put that in a place, and then you have to also practice the code to their example.
Yeah, I agree with you because my parents inculcated the habit of reading right from my second or third standard. And I would always say this, that reading books is the shortest way to knowledge.
Yeah.
And you can read plethora of books, plethora of genres. So even today I read at least 15, 20 minutes, if not more. And that's become a habit every day. For a student who's wanting to build his career, and like I earlier said, he's confused as to which path he needs to take, whether it is HR, finance, IT, engineering student as well. For an engineering student, there is EEE, computer science, information technology, ECE, civil engineering. So what are the options? The options are plenty, but what do you tell or what will you guide them as?
So if you ask me, whatever the field they take, I want them to be in excel in that, because so it's everything there is an opportunity. Like that opportunity, they have to go and understand it. But the main problem with most of the engineering or MBA or BBA student is, after the second year, they never listen to the concepts in third year. They will always will hunt on jobs. Don't look for jobs. You look for a career, right? Careers are more oriented than jobs. Jobs, if you are looking for a job and then you want to get in salary and then you are out from the system, even in a job, if you are not learning, machines will eat you one day, right? So you have to be ever learning,
constantly learning, upskilling, and
so
reskilling.
I always say it's like happy learning.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So this is basically which will help. That's my.
I agree with you because you and me come from a different generation altogether. But today's youngsters want everything fast paced.
Yes.
They want. I remember one of the candidates who came in for an interview, and he said he had 11 months experience. Believe me, it was just 11 months. And he said he wants to become a team manager. I said, 11 months? He said, yes, ma'am, 11 months. So this generation wants everything fast-paced, everything a 2-minute Maggi noodles.
Maggi noodles.
So what would you give? What would you tell them, and what they should not do?
So first of all, I think I face this every day in my tech interviews or anything. The people will come and then they want to change everything. The Rome is built so many years back. They can't deconstruct and then reconstruct the things within the same span. And then they lose their attention span is very less.
Very short, exactly.
And then they lose interest very
quickly.
So I think for that, an experience is one thing. But what happens is they don't have a patience to listen also. Right? So you should always challenge them as a senior guys. You should always encourage them by giving a small tasks, and then that encouragement has to be passionate enough, and then they have to show the passion.
So after you explain the synergy between AI, statistics, and mathematics, for an engineering student who's taken up Java or .NET or SAP, how can he get into AI or ML or data science? That's question one. Second question is, how do support staff, your HR, admin, finance, market research, etc., or the networking staff, can, not necessarily the networking, but especially HR, admin, and finance, get into data science? Is there any opportunity at all, while I still want to continue with my HR role?
So I think the first question, the people who learn Java or who learn this, I always ask this engineers who are comes to me for interaction. I say, like, you want to become a fitter or you want to become an engineer? Okay. So if you ask me, they are only tools. Okay. The tools are needed, but an engineering is basically a holistic picture.
Sure.
So you need to have different tools and different techniques. So that has to be with you. Okay. And as I said, always insist on, you need to change it. Like, for example, today Java is now replacing with Python. And now Python will get replaced with, I think, if I'm not wrong, Julia is another one which is sitting back. So like that, it is all changing.
So you need to constantly learn.
But if you learn the fundamentals, how the code works,
then adapting to any technology is easy.
Yes. So I always say something like C, 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 and TN.
Okay.
The first C is basically concept. The second C is basically context. The third C is basically the case. And fourth is a code. And TN is for tool neutrality.
What is tool neutrality?
Yeah. Tool neutrality is something like the tool which are you using today might change tomorrow.
Okay.
Right? But you should be, the concepts will remain same. Context will remain. And then the context will remain. The neutrality is something like which basically changes.
So as a HR person myself.
My second answer is, so how does the support staff has to get adapted to this? So the support staff, which are good in their own functional knowledge, has to think about the decision-making capabilities in a rapid environment. So they have to adapt towards the tools and techniques. If they are not doing it on their own, at least they need to have an analogy or critical thinking how to do it. They can still concentrate on their main jobs, but they can take the support of the tools and techniques, which will help them. So for an engineer, the tools and techniques has to be neutral. They have to be concentrate on this concepts and this thing. Whereas this guys, the other support staff, has to change their, without changing their functions, they can actually augment these tools, and then they can see what happens is everything is, as you rightly said, 2 minutes noodles, right? If I have seen my people also, they raise a request and then immediately they send me an email, sir, I raised a request, can you please approve it? So you have only one work. I have 52 people. I am doing so many things, but I have to do that. So I have to be on top of that. So those kind of an decision making has to be very agile and fast, and you have to use an intelligence always to overcome these things. So again, for them also, if you are not adapting, you will become another Hindustan Motors.
Right. What is the three advice or 3 pointers that you will give a young student, both engineering and management student?
See, first and foremost thing is you have to understand the concepts. Okay?
Whichever stream you've taken.
Whichever stream. I respect all the streams. Okay? Whichever stream you have taken, the conceptual clarity should be perfect. Once you have conceptual clarity, then that concepts has to get reminded and remind and recall.
Right.
Okay? You should develop that capability of, you call everything as a reciting kind of thing, right? Then the third is basically constantly learn.
In your career as your, even including your PhD and your career in the economics, statistics, and today AI and ML, how much of the work that you have done is closely related to the government sector?
Okay, my PhD was completely for government sector. So in fact, my PhD has been quoted many places. And whenever I look out for a Nobel Prize, I think I always see if someone got a Nobel Prize where I have used their things. I feel very happy.
Right.
So I used something called, when you have an oligopolistic structure of a market, and one firm is in government in that oligopolistic structure, and it dominates the other firms, then that kind of a theory got a Nobel Prize in 2017.
Oh, wonderful.
So
was your name mentioned as well?
No. He has got that, but I use the same thing in my thesis.
Sure.
But I feel like always some of our ideas getting reflected. Okay. And also, I actually work for a couple of my friends' thesis. Okay. So that thesis was something on participatory development. Like when you go for any kind of an participation kind of a thing, how much you are contributing and all those things get reflected.
What do you mean by participation?
Participation
is it elections or is it what?
No, elections is one form of participation. If any kind of things like, for example, you talk about
policy making as well.
Yeah, for example, you talk about something like watershed development. Unless until the entire village people participated, that watershed development will never come up. So I'm currently working something on choosing not to drive electric.
Okay.
Why people are not using electric?
EVs.
Not EVs, electric mode. Okay. When they have an option.
Okay.
So that's another research area which I'm working on. Wherever you work, wherever you study, if you understand these concepts, you are safe. But branding institutions are branded because of the faculties and because of the research they come from. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, a student is capable of anything, but this is how they go. So your question is basically how can they use these things, right?
Yes.
Like for example, a blockchain technology of an HR person definitely can be used in selecting the candidate, right? So for example, you can come up with one application where they upload their CV. That CV has to be authenticated by...
In fact, AI has helped the HR recruitment division to a large extent. How I'll say this is, earlier in the last maybe 5-6 years back also, I used to get 20, 30, 50 CVs, and I would not know whether Venugopal has applied in the past or not. But today I just type Dr. Venu Gopal and it will give you all the results of whether he's applied, when he's applied, whether it's a duplicate CV, etc. So in that context, it's helped.
But that is one way of that. But what happens here is, for example, in a blockchain, if one person is applying for a job, that person has to be authenticated by few other people.
Parameters.
Okay. No, few other people who are in the sources.
Okay.
So that authentication creates a trust.
Okay.
Okay, because you and he doesn't have to give lena dena kuch nahi.
Right.
But if he is authenticated, then you have some trust on it.
Okay.
So the first and foremost thing is that kind of authentication and trust factor has to be created, and then everything can be traceable, right, from his education towards the end. What happens is most of the CVs, what we are trying to do now is it's more reactive in nature. Once we get a CV, we trust everything, and then we check, we do a background verifications and all after he's
Joins
into
the
the
company.
job. So that has to be more predictive in nature.
Okay.
That helps better.
Right. You yourself has worked or are working on blockchain, AI, ML, data science. So does a young professional get an opportunity to work in all these sectors and all, I wouldn't say sectors, but all these technologies and emerging technologies which may come in the future?
Every, like for example, if you ask me, everything today is basically technology is moving fast. Like blockchain, AI, ML, and other these technologies, everyone has to be go through this kind of stuff.
Right.
And everyone has to prepare for these things. If you are not updated, so your robots will basically eat you. Okay.
So are you saying people will not have the jobs?
No, no, no. People will definitely have a job. See, for example, I'll tell you, most of these technologies, as on today, everything goes with the prompting. Who has to give prompting?
Human.
Right? So that is how they have to be in the space.
Right.
If they don't,
So you're saying, in a nutshell, people will not lose their jobs as long as they are upgraded and reskilled.
yes. So business intelligence, research intelligence, market intelligence, or artificial intelligence, anything will always help from a human intelligence.
Right. What's the difference between business intelligence and data intelligence?
See, I think both are like a same. Business intelligence is something if the business required any kind of an intelligence which should be data driven, it's become a business intelligence.
Right.
Like for example, you look at a report or you look at a product, that can be again reactive or proactive. Reactive or something like what happened in the past, you're looking at it. Proactive is something like what will happen in the future,
Okay.
you will look at it.
Okay.
And then prescriptive is something like what you have to take a decision.
All right.
Whereas data intelligence is basically how this data is intelligently helping it without any biases.
Going back to your personal interest, you also teach. Can you talk us through that?
See, I'm actually, as I said, like no, I am an assimilator and disseminator of knowledge. I always learn the new things and then try to understand. That basically personally helps me. If I'm teaching something like that's a new subject for me first, and then I become a confident, then I teach.
So do you teach at colleges and universities?
I used to do that, but of late, after my health issues and other things, I stopped.
Okay.
But earlier, I used to do it. I used to go, I think I used to do it in 3 ways. The first way is I used to go to government places and then the rural places. I used to encourage people to do that. I tried many times, but I miserably failed. But I am not stopping it. I go to government places. I use this chalkboard, and I also teach it in very very high level institutions, where I will learn from those students and then try to disseminate that learning with the rural people. I'm
Right.
like a translator between like elite and poor.
All right. Your interest also is digital economics
Yeah.
and rural economics.
Yeah.
Can you throw light on those?
Sure. Digital economics, as I explained, like no. For example, if I want to explain you about the commerce industry today, so earlier your industry, commerce industry is like e-commerce, something like you have something on website and you need to do your research and picking up.
Okay.
But in a digital world, you follow someone, right? It's like a Duesenberry effect in economics. You follow someone if that one is doing it, and then you want to follow it. Like for example, I can give you an example of my own kid. She always follows some people, and she always wants to take their bags or something. So that kind of an effect she gets.
Okay.
So it's all because of digital following. So it's basically in your in the physical world of an commerce or something, you have a market and you have an customers.
Okay.
The bridge between market and customers, you have different other things will come and like they will come to an brick and mortar stores and then purchase it and all.
Okay.
But in a digital world, and then you have a sales agents. Okay, your sales agents are like Insta, Facebook, or
Right.
some influencers, and your market is basically require the trends of these people who are buying from these guys, and you have an manufacturers. If you put everything in a digital platform, right, from manufacturers to the customers, it goes hand in hand.
It goes into one basket.
One basket. All your transactions are digitally inclined. So that's called digital economics.
All right.
Okay. So all your economics, like let's say market mechanism is that. Similarly, you talk about manufacturing. In the manufacturing, there is a mission, and mission gives a lot of sensors. I'm not talking about these sensors are new or something.
Right.
From dated back of industrial 3.0 itself, all these sensors has come. That decisions has to be driven from this. Now all the data is available. You put this information together and then go back.
All right.
So all these things, this is all nothing but theory of information, asymmetric information, and concrete information, and the information flow, how much of speed and agility it takes, and how accurately it goes.
All right.
If you put everything together, it's basically a digital economics. That's a subject which
Passionate about.
which I have created on my own, and then I'm working on it. In rural economics, see what happens is rural people, if you talk about, those days are gone. Okay, you think about a rural people where there is no food, no roti, makan, kapada, all are gone. Now there is a lot of growth happened in these areas,
Right.
thanks to all the whatever government has done in the 75 years or something. I'm not only talking about India as a country, but globally.
Right.
There is some NGOs and everyone is working on it. But what happens is nowadays, what is the rural clusters require? They require vibrant jobs. They require people to get into that. So I'm actually thinking something like in Industry 4.0. I think you also should understand this. You get a good white collar people. Everyone studies engineering. What happens to blue collar workers?
Right.
Okay, drivers, people who is doing a driver, they also make their children to study economics and study engineering to get into a white collar job because they have witnessed it.
They have seen that struggle.
Struggle, right? So for that people, you need to have skills. Okay, there is still a need for them. Instead of that becoming hard jobs, you have to create a career.
Right.
Okay, so that is my another interest.
All right.
That's where I am trying to work now. I'm not working with any NGOs or governments because the moment you put NGO or government or something, some or other government changes and then you still put it as some development case or something or something. I don't want to get in there.
Right.
But as an individual, if at least I can create 50, 60 people on my own, I'm happy. That's where my pursuit of happiness is.
Sure. What else are your other interests apart from these?
My other interest is I basically watch all the sports, particularly cricket and football. I watch them because to learn and to understand more about the geography and other things of the countries. Like when I think first time when I was watching cricket matches in New Zealand, I learned there was an natural heaters. Okay, and how the springs comes of a hot water.
So you love traveling as well.
I love traveling.
Yeah.
But now I stopped it.
All right. What are your future plans, and what do you envisage for for India as a country?
So my future plans, if you ask me, I want to contribute as much as possible
To the society.
to the government as well as to society. Government, because if I grow professionally, I can make more taxes and everything.
Okay.
if I want to contribute to the society by giving some of my knowledge, what I have, and try to generate some good people, at least moral hazard people to them. That's what.
All right. What are the pointers that you would give for the government to enhance the IT sector?
See, as I said, government is an institution, and the IT sector or any other sector like pharma, IT, or most of these sectors, it always works with four eyes framework. The first is infrastructure, second is incentives, the third is become institutions, and fourth eye is investments. If you create this climate, I think any sector will grow.
Right. But there are so many bottlenecks that the government faces.
Yeah, that's what I said, right? The government faces bottlenecks because of many things. The first is basically the
Policy and decision making.
yeah, there are different agents in the system, right? So the agents become an bureaucrats, or the agents become.
You can't do away with that.
No, the agents might be the contractors, or the agents might be the uh, politicians, whatever it may be. So everyone wants to maximize their interest.
Right.
So if you can actually curtail that maximization,
Very true.
And
So it also leads to zero corruption
yeah.
to a large
No,
extent.
zero corruption is an Ethiopian movie. You can't even-
Which is not possible, but at least reduce
Minimization.
corruption. Yeah, yeah.
Minimization of these things are basically which is required.
All right. It was wonderful talking to you,
Thank
Venu
you very
Gopal. Thank you for enlightening us.
Yeah.
Thank you for being our guest today, and thanks for your valuable tips to our students. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Bye.